This week, how an airline and a spice brand join forces for an airborne culinary experience. We'll find out how to market a foreign country to a South African target audience and why billboards lost the fight for survival during the recent rainy weather. We'll visit the local home of sports brand Adidas in the heart of Jozi, and we'll round it all off with why font counts in advertising as we talk to the worldwide creative director for the Brand Union Agency. This is Mags on Media. Let's start with this. The notion of country branding is a relatively new concept where nations see themselves as brands and use tried and tested marketing techniques. Interestingly, one country embracing this concept in the local market is Cyprus. We're joined now by Jenny Ellinas, who runs an organization, a company called Cyprus Reality. Welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. First of all, are you marketing the country as a tourist destination or an emigration alternative for South Africans, or a bit of both?
Well, Jeremy, it's been very interesting. When I started my company 5.5 years ago, the main thrust was to look at a plan B for South Africans who are wanting to explore something else, something a little different, maybe looking to move across with little Johnny and little Sarah, also in terms of maybe moving their business across. So it started off traditionally as a place that people were looking for residency, maybe even citizenship, but very quickly it moved into the tourism aspect as well. Just some interesting stats. Cyprus last year enjoyed 2.5 million tourists welcome to their shores, and they enjoyed 2.2 billion euros in tourism revenue. So this is a country that has got a lot of appeal for locals as well as international.
Well, let's talk about that appeal. As we're talking to you, behind you on the screen are some wonderful pictures coming up of the country itself. Who are the customers and what would they find unique about it before we talk about the marketing strategy?
Well, first of all, in terms of where Cyprus has a huge appeal is that being an ex-British colony, there is number one known language barrier. Second of all, they are very geared around tourism, and in terms of the fact that if you're going across as a tourist, you're going to have a fantastic experience. 320 days of beautiful sunshine a year. So you know that as somebody who wants to go across on a holiday, you're going to love it. They have a huge big market for, funny enough, for people wanting to get married. So as the bride, you know you're going to enjoy fantastic weather and of course everything that goes around outdoor activities. So outdoor is where you want to go.
All right. Jenny, your job obviously is to talk it up, yet the perception that we have is, one, it is a country that is sadly divided. It's a contested country. The other issue, I think, is that it was hard hit by the euro crisis.
Without a doubt. Jeremy, last year in March, they had the huge collapse of two of Cyprus's largest banks. Just to give you a bit of background on that, was what happened in 2011 when the Eurozone had to try and bail out Greece. Cyprus was highly exposed to Greek debt, so not even their own local debt, and they had to write off 5 billion euros of Greek government bond debt. This meant that two banks were about to collapse. They were then forced by the Troika to borrow funds from people that had investments over the 100,000 euro threshold, where there is a savers deposit insurance. So the perception around the world was that the government steals your money. Well, they don't. They were forced to borrow it and they've already started to pay back some of those funds.
But it's a difficult image to counter, though,
absolutely, 100%, because of course the financial aspect that has come through is that people saying, must I invest there? Is my money going to be stolen? What is the longevity that I have with myself as a country?
Fair point. What about the division? That surely counts against.
Well, that happened in 1974. It's a huge big bone of contention, but what another fact that was our point of interest is that when Cyprus discovered natural gas in the exclusive economic zone, of course the whole of the Eurozone has said, guys, we've got to sort this out. Now that Cyprus is going to be the jewel of the Mediterranean and they're going to be using their natural gas to start funding and pumping natural gas into Europe, they want this thing resolved quite quickly.
All right, you've gone a long way in selling the notion to us, okay?
Yes.
Your job now is to put together a cohesive and coherent marketing strategy. What are you doing?
Well, interestingly enough for me was, how do I find to try and reach somebody like me? I would typify myself as a typical client that would be interested in Cyprus, and how do I reach Jenny? Well, it was difficult initially. I've started to build a lot of my brand through information seminars, and how I got those around is to advertise them in the newspapers, because a lot of my target market aren't necessarily electro-phobes or even know how to even get onto Twitter. The next step was, of course, to continue the face-to-face momentum in doing exhibitions.
The experiential side
Without
of it. You go, you touch Cyprus, you're going to be influenced.
Correct, because you know, you go to my website, you go to the Cyprus Reality Facebook page, it looks good, it's very pretty, but you've got to get the down to earth, the reality of what's happening on the island. And then wherever I have an opportunity to do seminars, seminars, I would approach the local radio stations and ask to do live interviews.
All right, country brands have become very competitive. They have to. Who do you believe that brand Cyprus, Jenny, is competing against?
Well, of course, the tried and tested brand is Malta. They've been around for many, many years. They've certainly trenched the way for South Africans. They know all about island-style living. They know about what's expected, especially with a permanent residency option. But where I've had a big advantage is that because Cyprus is a much bigger country, for us South Africans who are used to spaces and big golf estates and getting outdoors and mountain ranges and skiing and snowing, that has a huge big trump card.
Interesting insight. Thank you very much for joining us, Jenny Ellinas. Now, obviously, the best way to get to Cyprus, or perhaps the easiest way to get to Cyprus, would be to fly. So let's talk airline and condiment branding now. Fair to say that airplane food is generally not anything to get too excited about, but celebrity chef Reuben Riffel changed that for 4 plane loads of unsuspecting passengers on various Kulula flights. Unilever's Robertson's Herbs and Spices brand challenged Riffel to create a 3-course in-flight dining experience to showcase the twist that Robertson's products claim to bring to any meal.
I fly quite often, and I was thinking about what I would love on a menu. You can't just take something you serve on the ground and say, wow, this is a great dish, and serve it on a plane, because the same 2 dishes will taste completely different. We had to make the flavors almost more intense.
This is my boy.
Side.
Testing, testing.
Here we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is not your captain speaking. My name is Jenny Morris, and right now I'm sure you're thinking, what is going on this flight? Well, I'm here to tell you there won't be the usual in-flight food service today, because South Africa's favorite spice people, Robertson's, together with Kulula.com, are going to treat you to some fine dining developed by Reuben Riffel using Robertson's spice combinations.
For starters, we're doing a feta and buttered leek tartlet. For mains, we have pistachio and black pepper crusted beef fillet.
Amazing.
The meal was phenomenal.
What one do you expect from a combination of Robertson spices and Reuben Riffel?
It really has been a great pleasure working with Robertsons, and yeah, we've loved it. Our customers loved the flight today.
My steak was cooked perfectly, which I really don't know how they got that right.
And coming up, how an iconic sports brand is taking its marketing message to downtown Johannesburg.
News that moves. ENCA.com.